Are you working? What kind of work do you do?
Welcome to the Philly EDC Holster Clinic, where Kydex craftsmen from across America and beyond are sending in their holsters for us to give them our honest feedback about what could be better, what could be improved, and what they're doing right. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to episode 6 of the Holster Clinic. I'm sorry for the delay. We've had a lot of stuff going on here, and anyway, we're back on track. Today we've got some holsters from Nick over at RockRidge Kydex. And these ones are interesting in terms of what we're used to seeing. I think these, first of all, the definition on these is really good. The edges are pretty squared away. There are just a couple small issues that I have with these. Before I get into those, what you'll see is that we have a left-handed and right-handed model here. What I can tell from these two different versions is that he's cleverly designed one mold that he can use for right or left-handed in terms of how he stands things off to install these eyelets here and hard rivet this belt on. Now the left-handed version has a thinner integral belt loop attachment than the right-handed one. I would strongly recommend that you only use 125 thousandths for this application. And I'll get into why. What you can see, it's probably going to be easier to see it on the black one due to the contrast, is that it has an entire back piece that turns into a belt loop. Now this is pretty good at spreading out the weight, and as flat as this is, it was not uncomfortable when I was wearing it. The only issue I have is that the bigger this piece is, the bigger a lever it becomes, and the more leverage it can exert on these fasteners and any points of stress and flex. So if I were to, get involved in something where, this torques, that repeated torquing will generate some sort of undesirable consequences somewhere else. And they could be on the body of the holster, and especially the way this sight channel pinches to a complete point here. The repeated flexing of that as the whole system flexes may result in something that you don't necessarily want. I think that if you're going to go for something like this, you might want to consider either multiple points of attachment as opposed to just hard rivet at the top and then bolted on at the bottom. Additionally, I found that the retention was extremely high. And I think that if you're going to, like I've said previously, if you're going to use hardware here for this, you could also put in an adjustable retention feature. That could be a cool thing to do on something like this. Additionally, when I go to grip the gun, I do encounter a little interference with my hand here. Now, the amount of retention that this has causes a lot of flex as the holster opens and closes, and all of that flex is going to get distributed to this spine here. And I think that curving that, or being a little more accurate and deliberate and consistent in the way you curve it, will help mitigate certain kinds of stress-related fractures in the future. What I can see here is that there's a small inconsistency in the way that this is treated on these two holsters. On the left-handed one, you've done a really good job of removing the excessive material and locating these in a logical way in relationship to the edge. This kind of has like a big piece here that does nothing for the holster other than just be a flat piece of Kydex. So being a little more deliberate and consistent in the way you address that will lead to improved, quality control and consistency. Aside from that, my only other issue was that I kind of struggled to understand exactly what the application of these was. Their size and ride height is such that they're not necessarily very easy to conceal, which led me to believe, okay, well maybe it's designed to clear body armor or for competition. I can see it being more applicable in terms of the former of those things, such that it, rides at an appropriate height that you know, nothing's really going to get in your way. And given the retention for that, I think that's probably a good application. However, I think, you know, in that circumstance, it could stand off a little bit. And if you're concerned with it, you know, clearing a vest or whatnot, you should also take into consideration any kind of excess material that may hang up on a seat belt or getting in and out of a vehicle in a rapid fashion. So that's why I wanted to address that. In terms of it having like a good ride height and kind of offset in terms of competition, that's possible. However, the retention's too high for that, and it slows down the draw stroke considerably. So if you are considering what the most ideal application for something like this would be, if it rides a little bit higher and doesn't offset from the body as much, it would be perfect for concealed carry. But if it's not going to do those things, I think that it's important to take into consideration the requirements of the other applications. That being said, I would, you know, like I said about this back plate, while it is functional and it appears pretty sturdy, I would play like a what if kind of game in terms of, you know, anticipating potential points of failure and sort of like consider that, not that I expect this to fail, but in the event that that does occur, I would have sort of like a plan B ready to go, or consider that before you run into a problem with these. Because while it's functional, there's just something about it. I think there's a little too much material. I think there's potential for things to occur here that involve all this extra material, and the amount of leverage that it can apply to the mounting points is something that, while I don't have any like evidence that anything's going to happen, it kind of like nags me just a little bit. So I would really consider maybe like a version 2 of this back plate that maybe takes a few more things into consideration. However, I think the knife sheaths are super slick. I like that the hole patterns are designed to interface with all of the Blade Tech Lock kind of components. That's a very good idea. Two small things about the knife sheaths. One, I always look for extra clearance here where my finger is going to meet that grip, so I don't run into a situation where I don't have a really excellent grip on the knife. And I was looking at these, and I want to show you a little difference between these two. On this one, it's like a total pancake, and it's got the sort of, you know, like pancake edge fit and finish that we're used to, and you've done a really good job of like beveling these edges down. Now I want to discuss something that's a little more generalized. Now what you can see is on this one, you can see that it's one piece of Kydex that's been folded over. And on this one, it's a pancake style that blends the edges. Now, this isn't a knock on anything at all, but it's something that I kind of like was thinking about and wanted to discuss. The biggest difference between these is that in this one, the process by which it's made is transparent to the user. So when somebody buys it, they can see that this material was folded over, like, you know, like you would, you know, like a piece of paper or whatever, and they can sort of see the way it was made. Now, there's no judgment attached to that whatsoever. The only thing that it does do is remove a small amount of mystery from the process. Now, there's no, that's not a good thing or a bad thing at all, but what it does do is it kind of makes the construction of the item a little bit more routine and transparent to the person who buys it. Now the question is, you know, for somebody who's buying a functional knife sheath, that's not an issue. But, you know, when you get involved in a sheath that like blends these edges and looks like it's all like, you know, something that might have come out of like a machine or whatnot, that makes it just a touch more mysterious and potentially even a little more special to the person who's using it, because it's a little bit harder for them to imagine how it was made, if that makes any sense. What do you does that make any sense, Mikey? Mm. It's just a little consideration that I was thinking about in terms of, like, you know, the experience that the end user might have. I don't think I'm reaching, but I think it is interesting to think about how factors like that come into a customer's experience of a product. That's all. But I mean, that's not to say that this is any kind of like not good way of doing it. I mean, this is awesome. The sheath looks great. It's well constructed. It fits all the hardware you want it to fit, and the retention's good. But it's just an opportunity to consider details like that may have something to do with the way that the customer experiences the product. But aside from that, I think these are really good, man. I would just do a couple things. I would not use 93 thousandths for this back plate. I would stick with 125 thousandths, even though it is only black. And I would also consider the long-term effects of having a lot of retention in combination with a lot of leverage on an item. But aside from that, the definition, the fit, and finish are all really, really good, man. Good job.